get the live stream going. So let's see who's gonna pop in and join. We're on the way home. Spent the last 2 days in the Thunder Bay area. So, yeah. Rocking and rolling. Rocking and rolling. Better kill the volume there. Let's see who we've got. Okay, folks. I know I'm a little early than I usually go. I'll share the road with you today. Who's gonna enjoy the ride with me. Hello, hello. Who we got here? Wow. You got a whole group of people here. Don't be shy. Say hello. I'm Neil, and this is my drive home through northwestern Ontario. I've already been on the road 2 hours or 3 hours. I got about an hour and a half yet to go, and this is pretty much the view the whole way. Little bit of traffic, a lot of trees, rocks, and guardrails. This is the highway that's the first one north of the border between Canada and the U.S. Those are not right up to the highway, but some of them do come right up alongside. We're driving basically on the bank of the lake or the shore. And this is all Canadian Shield rock, granite. So somebody stuck around out of the almost 20 that were here. But I guess you don't want to say hello. It's a beautiful country. But, you know, if you notice, there ain't a lot of houses here. Not a lot of houses at all. As a matter of fact, here on the right side of the highway, there are poles there that are carrying line, But that is the Bell communication line and not Hydro. There's only one line there. Hydro runs 2 or 3 lines at a minimum. That is Bell Telecom. The old copper pairs running through there. Yeah. Now the sign for Perch Lake Road, I imagine there's some cabins down that road on Perch Lake. Oh, see, there's a lodge out there. Speed I'm traveling at for my American friends, I'm doing 65 miles an hour. For my friends from the rest of the world where they use the metric system, that's 105 kilometers an hour. And for the Canadians, that's kilomiles. Right here on the right, they've just stripped that area and they're harvesting material. By what I mean by harvesting material is they're pulling out sand, gravel, and rock. That sign that we just passed was Port Francis is 120 kilometers ahead, 75 miles. And I've got to go all the way through Port Francis and 3 kilometers beyond the point where they measure to and from. Oh, somebody made a comment there. Hello. Hello, Andrea. Welcome to my live stream. Thank you for your blessing, your words of blessing there. I find it interesting, that in just about every one of my live streams, somebody makes a statement of their faith, and you may not be aware of it, but I am a man of faith, and in a way that most people don't quite understand, because when Jesus was on earth, he did not come to create a new religion as, we define it as set beliefs. What he came to do is call us out of religion, right? Organized institutional religion, with rules made by man. Because that's, what was going on in Jesus' time. All the Pharisees and Sadducees were, creating rules and laws and regulations that the people had to follow that were fences around the 10 Commandments. But they were not the 10 Commandments. And they sounded like they were, trying to protect the 10 Commandments. But they weren't. They were interfering with them. Jesus wanted us out of that. He wanted us in a relationship with our Heavenly Father. And it took me many years to come to that realization. Because I also was, born and raised in a church family. My parents still go to the same church that I went to when I was a kid, that I was baptized in as an infant and as a young adult. made profession of my faith. So obviously it was not, one of the Protestant churches that believes in adult baptism. And I'm not going to say which, denomination it was. But when I met my second wife, she was born and raised Pentecostal. Very, a woman of very strong commitment to her faith, and that was one of the things that really attracted me to her. We fought together against the institutional church. One of the things that they accused us of was we were living together, but we weren't married, right? By their definition of marriage. Believe it or not, the church got marriage all wrong. What we understand as getting married, that's not the biblical definition of marriage. If you want to know what the biblical definition of marriage is, you need to go to Genesis 28, the last 3 or 4 verses. And the last verse in particular, where it says that Isaac took Rebekah to his mother's tent, and they were married. That's what it says in the English Bible, right? Now, that brings up the question, who was in the tent? Was the rabbi there? Preacher? Priest? How about the whole congregation? Were they, to witness the marriage? Good question. I see I'm talking to myself again. But anyways, so Isaac took Rebekah to his mother's tent, and they were married. Well, I can pretty much guarantee you this: there were only 2 people in that tent, Isaac and Rebekah, and they were married. How did they get married? Well, earlier in Genesis it says that a man shall leave his mother and father and be united with his wife, and the 2 shall become one flesh. That means that they had sex. Can we even say that word on YouTube? They had sex. They were married. Now, that was how God defined marriage, right? The 2 became one. They had sex. But the church has, twisted that around, but they still acknowledge that that is the foundation of marriage, because every church, doesn't matter which one it is, but primarily the Catholic Church, you can go to the priest after a time, after you've been married, and say, we have not consummated our marriage, and they will grant you an annulment. Which means, the marriage, was not officially completed. So how can a church, a religious institution, claim that they are the arbiters of when a marriage is a marriage and when it is not. God clearly defined it. But the church, went and put new fences around what God, because, the church had to be in control. Married and who wasn't. Hey, welcome back to my stream. Bear with me, folks. So, where I am, the signal is sparse. The towers are limited. Hello, Ashley. Oh, it's not your internet, it's mine. I am driving out in the wilderness of Ontario. So if you look, I can't. If you look right up there, oh, there's a tower right there, kind of in the sun, and it makes for interesting connections because the towers are placed at roughly 20 kilometers apart here. So when you get to the fringe of a connection or you dip into a valley, you can lose connection. And a lot of times there's going to be bandwidth issues or aiming issues with the cells because they only cover, I think it's a 45 degree or something like that spread on the antenna. It's not like the antennas on your cell phone or what you normally consider the broadcast and reception range of an antenna, which is omnidirectional. Cell phone antennas are very, very focused directional. And that focus can even be controlled and limited. Where am I going? I am heading home, back towards Fort Frances, Ontario. I am traveling Highway 11, which coincidentally is the longest single jurisdictional highway in the world. It is there. There we go, I'm back. Sorry about that, folks. Wow. Unbelievable. My cell phone would not reconnect. I had to basically drop stream and then come back to it. Ooh, that sun's bright there. Okay, I'll let you look at my crazy face. How's that? Yep, I'm back. Sorry about the connection here. Sometimes it just takes off, it disappears. Hello, Noopy. I see Christina is here. Let's see who else I can spot. Of course, when I'm driving, it's a little harder to read your comments, because I do need to stay focused on the road. But I do have my tablet, so they're a little bigger. Yes, I started my stream earlier than usual. I just figured, let's see who's out there who wants to talk early. I was getting bored. I got just about an hour left on my drive now. Behind me is we were in a swirl when we went past it. I drive to quite frequently. I think what's happening is we're not getting clean handoff from one cell tower to another, because just there, about 3 kilometers ahead, I can see the tower that is where I get my cell service from. But there's also one behind me, so the signal has to be handed from one to the next, and I don't think it's handing off cleanly. Port Francis, 80 kilomiles. And it'll go along quickly. I'm doing 75 miles an hour or 120K. We're traveling. So often, 120, and past police officers going the other way. Nothing. They don't even bother. Because usually they're in transit from, 1 yard to another. They got a mission at the other end. They haven't got time to bother to stop and write you a ticket. Because they're probably doing 120 or 130 themselves. Oh, we're swirling again and fuzzy, and yeah. I know the view, let's switch this back to the road, it'll look better. Oh, there. No. Come on. Roadside. Not my ugly puss.